Hey there, welcome to another mod showcase. Today we are looking at the Italian Navy. Highlight, this is a mod. This is not something that gets added into the base game. As of right now, you're gonna have to get that as a mod through the Steam Workshop. So comments going, oh, why are the devs wasting their time on... No, this is a mod. So let's get that out of the world. Now, as for this particular ship, we have the Andrea Dorya class. This ship is what they consider to be a missile cruiser. She's a bit of a weird beast at that, because yes, she carries missiles. No, I would not consider her a cruiser. She carries 40 Standard Missile 1 ER, not much particular to say about that. Standard Missile 1 ER with 40 mile range, and ideally you get that range if the target's flying high. Outside of that, if a target's flying low, good luck trying to get 40 mile range. You're lucky if you can get 10. Now, in order to get that missile locked onto targets, we have the SPS-52, which is an air search radar with a 240 mile range and a very nice altitude horizon. We also have some defensive options here, but outside of that, you don't get a second radar. So not something to bolster your air search capabilities. Next up, we have the ASROC and the ASW Torpedo, as well as the Oto 76-62 Grisson. You can see them here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Why would a missile cruiser have all of these guns, I beg? I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure. But we're going to test them out against some of these somewhat unsuspecting merchants. Let's see how well these things actually do.
Engage track 7004. Salvo fire.
They fire in unison. Every once in a blue moon, by the looks of it. There we go. Now, these are just 3-inch guns, 76 millimeters, so I don't really expect a whole lot of excellent results from them. If you're lucky, you'll be able to sink something after firing many hundreds of rounds at it. Because it's been my experience that 3-inch guns just generally don't do very well. The ship does have a very deep magazine for them, at almost 4,000 rounds. At least they start out with 4,000. And I suppose you're going to need that because they, I suspect, double as an anti-missile system. That's on top of the chaff, but they don't actually get the opportunity to use any kind of other self-defense weapon. They don't have a CIWS. Now, I gotta say, this thing is actually getting chewed up much faster than I'd expected. Which is impressive. Ceasefire. The next weapon system that they carry, and I had to look this up, is the Sklar. I was looking at what is a Sklar. The Sklar is an MLRS, which doesn't really make it any more obvious what the point is, but it's a self-defense weapon system. I'm going to pause the game here. You can see it right here on the side, right there. It's a decoy launcher. Does it work? Not really. Have a look at this clip. So this is the Sklar in action. All these Italian ships are putting out pretty fireworks, but I don't know if it actually does anything. You're fighting a shipwreck, and of course the rest of the ships aren't defending themselves because I just told them to use this, but the missile doesn't really give a shit. So, I'm not really sure how useful this particular weapon/defensive system is going to be, at least in sea power. So yeah, I personally wouldn't exactly use that thing to defend my fleet. I think that maybe your chaff is going to be the better option. What you can supposedly do with these is engage other ships. Whether that will work? I don't know. Of course, in sea power, the better the range you have, the more likely you are to survive. So, given that, it makes me wonder even more whether this is going to be any kind of a useful weapon. You can see that splashes are occurring everywhere except on the ship. Again, this is supposed to be a decoy/defensive weapon. Don't expect this thing to sink anything. Once sea power actually gets to use weapon systems like this more, great. But right now, nah, it's not that good. Now, we're going to move on to the Vtorio Venetto. Vtorio Venetto is another one of their pretty good looking ships. Noteworthy is how high the stern is, And they do have a helicopter flight deck. Where's their hangar? Below decks. What do they carry? SH-3s, Sea Kings, capable of going at it with torpedoes in various loadouts, and even anti-ship. The anti-ship loadout for this particular helicopter gives you the the MART. The MART is capable of going after targets at 16 miles. Not a whole lot, but they do have active radar homing. So they can guide themselves onto a target, which means you can throw these things at a target from just beyond the horizon, fly low, ideally, and make sure that those missiles find the targets all by themselves. So what about this ship? Well, they are considering this another missile cruiser, and again, they got the Standard Missile 1 ER, the Sklar, they got the Automat Mark II. This is a 97-mile anti-surface active radar homing anti-ship missile. So it is capable of going after targets at high ranges. 97 miles is substantially better than using a harpoon. It does fly fairly similar speeds as the harpoon at 603 knots.
Engaging track 70.
I suppose it's one of those tubes over there. I wonder why it says sensors are offline. Are you guiding this missile? I don't quite understand why I would need to have my radar active to guide an anti-ship missile. If you want my anti-ship missile to have a lot of range, then I don't at all expect to have to guide it onto the target by using radar. Because that kind of defeats the purpose. My radar will never be able to illuminate targets all the way out to 97 miles. They simply can't. So that means, what is this automat to do? If I go MCON, the game is complaining that the sensors are offline. So, I don't know. Hold on, actually let me check that. Air search, surface search. Now it wants to fire. Can I fire in the opposite direction? Yes. So I can fire in the opposite direction. I am linked to the Vtorio Venetto. See, with these merchants, I can see these. Literally, I have visual line of sight against these things. I also got radar guided, but what if these missiles jump out of range? What happens then? Because the horizon's about 20-25 mile range out. So let's have this Automat Mark II fly all the way there. They're flying at an altitude of 68 feet, which is fairly high. There you go, connection lost. It's a curious weapon. Did you just change your course? No, you're searching. 0.93, and then it zigzags back towards the west, 0.83. So they got about a 10 degrees search cone. Interesting anti-ship missile, but only 4 is going to mean that you're going to have to punch a lot of these things up in order to get potentially 1 hit. So that's a bit of a problem with this ship. As for the rest, they do have some CIWS, which is something that the Andrea Dorya is notably lacking. They have the Dardo 40mm. This thing's capable of going out to anti-aircraft, to aircraft, as well as surface, if you really want to, out to 6.7 miles, giving you the capability of engaging targets at, I'd say, decent range. We're getting shots from the port turret? I hope that this is just a ranging shot, otherwise these things are not going to be very useful. Yep, we're even getting it. And now we're getting somewhere. Good lord. That's a hefty rate of fire. I hope it works. Ceasefire. Dude. Stop. Normally if you press X, the ship stops. Thank you. Despite firing numerous rounds at this thing, you can see the game isn't particularly having a great time with it. It doesn't actually seem to have sunk the ship. So potentially as CIWS, it's going to be useful. Outside of CIWS, I kind of doubt it. I'm not so sure if it's going to be that useful. They also got another 4,000 rounds because they also have those 76s all the way around. And in tandem, those things are going to have to stop incoming missiles. So best of luck. Oh, and yeah, they do have the Sklar, but you know, not sure if that works. Something much, much smaller and much cuter is this thing, this Vtorio. I think that this is their... Is that their anchor? Good lord. That's a hefty anchor for a small boat like this. This thing is capable of launching the Automat Mark II. So it is that anti-ship missile that they carry. Punchy missile. I wonder if this thing is going to be able to get out. 53 knots? What the hell? I think that might be the fastest surface ship that I have seen in this game. 53 knots? Good lord. Show me what that looks like.
Turn to course. Ahead flank. Maneuvering eye.
18, 19, 20 knots. Oh! It's not your anchor. You turn yourself into a hydrofoil. That's a very neat animation. Well done, that. Note how the props above the water. That's a very nice animation. I saw that on the Steam page. You do need an extended animation mod for this, and now I get why. Because this is something that I have never seen on a ship before. Anyway, this is how they get up to 53 mile speed. Which means that these things can punch way above their weight class by racing them in, throwing a couple of those automats out, and racing all the way back. If you're feeling particularly brave, I suppose you could race at the enemy, try and shoot them with your 3-inch gun, but let's say your survivability might not be as good. All back emergency. Let's see what it does, because it should start folding itself back up. Yep. That is really cool. Really nice. I think this... She's still flying. I think it takes a minute or so for the ship to actually go back into the water, but that's another bit of the animation effect, rather than being a problem in sea power. Okay, moving on. We got the Mistrale. The Mistrale class, capable of launching the Aspide. This is an anti-air missile, which can be used anti-surface, high speed 2650, 14 mile range, 1-4. I'd say it's an okay weapon. The problem is you only carry 24. So your defensive operations are going to be not great, because you simply find yourself out of missiles too fast. That can be a real downside to this particular ship. They also carry the Automat Mark II, the same anti-ship missile that we've seen before, but they carry 6. They got them here. Nice loadout, 2 and 1, 2 and 1. So you can throw these out pretty quick. They also got the Sklar. You got another Otto 127, so that's a 5-incher. And I am particularly interested to see this one, because this is pretty much what the Dutch Navy uses. Essentially used to use. I think the first one's always a ranging shot, and then they figure out what sort of rate of fire they can actually get to. Come on. Don't tell me that's it. See, that's more like it. Yeah, you can get about around a minute. Sorry, around a second, I think. Which, with about 500 rounds, is going to keep you busy for a couple minutes trying to deplete this magazine. Again, with sea power, it's always a question of, am I going to hit something? And I think the answer is most of the time, not really. But then again, the guns, I'd say, if you're getting into gun range, you have either run out of other options, or you've messed up. Because most of the time, you're going to be throwing missiles at each other at, well, ideally, 90-something mile range. As for sensors, they carry a lot. They got, of course, a basic navigation sensor. They have an air search and surface search radar. We have another one, capable of going 59 miles. We have a variable depth sonar. How about that? Very nice to detect things below the thermal layer, which a ship normally cannot detect things at. We have access to a hull-mounted sonar, electronic support measures, and defensive electronic countermeasures. So this thing can definitely do a lot of work. As for its ASW capabilities, it is augmented by a helicopter. And this is the AB-212, which you can load out in an ASW role, even an anti-ship role, and look at that. We have an ELO role, electronic warfare, or sorry, EW role. That's very interesting. Now these helos are capable of throwing out torpedoes, but that is it. At least in this loadout, that is it. That can be a bit of a problem, because it means you're gonna probably have to work with a hunter-killer loadout. This is, yeah, this carry offensive ECM. Wow. That's interesting. That makes those missiles a lot more dangerous. Interestingly, these don't have that option. Because these can make their 4 automats hurt a lot more if they just had electronic warfare. As they don't have that, that's going to be a bit of a problem. Come back. I need to see if you can get loaded out with sonobuoys. Otherwise, we have just one detection platform, which is going to be the ship itself. And as the ship makes a lot of noise, that's going to be a bit of a problem. Okay, so what can you load out with? Okay, we'll come back to you in a minute. The Lupo. Quite a bit smaller than her friends on the other side. This is a guided missile frigate. Pretty much the same loadout, but they keep adding more of the automats. This one carries 8 in loadouts, as can be seen here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the same on the port side. Again, the Aspide, the 127s, the Dardo, and the Sklar. Aside from that, I think there's not that much to talk about, except maybe their speed. 35 knots is fast. These things can zip around the battlefield. At least more so. I mean, they're 10% faster than most of the cruisers. This one's doing 32. As for your sensors, Lupo, what do you carry? Pretty much the same. We have an electronic support measure. Hull-mounted sonar. Yeah, pretty much the same. They too have a helicopter. 2 of them, which can also be used in the electronic warfare role and anti-ship. Now, the anti-ship gives them a very cute anti-ship missile, the AS-12, which, as you can see, is absolutely tiny. It also has a range of a mere 8 miles. So best used against something that does not have any kind of AA capabilities, because most of the ships, even with their guns, will be able to shoot a helicopter out of the sky if it approaches to about 8 miles. Interesting missile. Whether it'll work, not so sure. Garibaldi. An aircraft carrier. Again, the same loadouts. We have the Aspida, they just carry more. The Sklar, they carry more. They carry automats. They carry the Dardo for defense, the ASW torpedoes, the noisemakers, and the chaff. As you can see, not very defensive oriented, or sorry, more defensive oriented, but no standard missiles. This is just, I think, an Italian weapon. 14-mile range can be good enough, but of course you're going to have to do a bit more offensive operations with your wing. Seeing as this is a slightly smaller aircraft carrier, we have access to Harriers, which have some interesting options. You got air-to-air, giving them 4 AIM-9s. You can go air-to-air long range, which can give them additional drop tanks. If you go intercept, you're going to get AIM-120s. How about that? That's a nice missile. AIM-120s give you a lot of punching power. And yes, they are part from a mod. Where is the AIM-120? Here. In case you're wondering, yes, that was my doorbell that went off, not yours. Anyway, the AIM-120, capable of going after turrets at 65 miles. So that's going to be a lot better than the AIM-9. AIM-9, I'd say, is not a very good option. It's only 9-mile range, which, to be fair, yes, you can still outrange some enemy units. But most of them are going to be just shooting you down. Especially if it's a Harrier. Now the Harrier, thankfully, does get a laser designator, a radar warning receiver, and a radar. This is something that's desperately lacking from some of the base Harriers, and because they don't have that, they tend to get surprised. Unless they have somebody else spotting for them. So they're decent weapon carriers, but outside of that, not great. These AV-8B+, though, they have options. They can also go on a strike loadout. Ooh, it's a vertical takeoff, how about that? They have a strike heavy, Strike Heavy gives you a couple of bombs. Strike Standard gives you a couple of more bombs, but it's the Mark 82s. Just carries more of them. And here you go. Quite the nice helicopter. Quite the nice Harrier here. I want you to fly low. We're going to do a pass by the aircraft carrier.
094. Roger. Turn 071.
You can see they're losing altitude. That's good. I'm going to have them go low. That was the Lupo.
Roger. Turn.
Here's the carrier. No, go low.
Go to altitude 5. On station.
Here we go. I'm trying to take a screenshot here. So, that is the aircraft carrier. Now, this was actually a real thing. And it is capable of doing quite some work. But offensive capabilities for this ship, I'd say, are lacking. They don't have electronic warfare. They don't have the option to go after enemies with an air-launched weapon system. Other than just throwing bombs. Notably, by the way, this thing has offensive ECM. Which, good lord, is pretty potent. It's about 40-mile range, I think. Jam in this direction. Yeah, 40, 50-mile range. Something to that effect. So that's a potent jammer. Very useful if you want to fly in anywhere. Moving on to the submarines, we have this very old Toti class. This is pretty much one from World War II, and its capabilities are somewhat limited. It is a diesel-electric submarine, which means you're going to have to come up for air every once in a while and charge your batteries. Especially the faster you go, the more you're going to be using that battery power. Their torpedoes are actually not that terrible. They can only shoot 6 of them, but these are capable of going after submarines and surface ships alike. They are wire-guided, so you can adjust them on the fly, and they are active and passive sonar homing. Very, very useful torpedo for a boat this old. How much noise do they make? It's actually pretty good. It's 132 at 2 knots. If you stop them entirely, you might get that down to 130 with some luck. I think it's going to stick around there. So you might as well be loitering at about 2 knots. As for their capabilities regarding sonar, it's probably not going to be that spectacular, but it doesn't really need to be. Because if you're not making that much noise yourself, yeah, 130, then you're going to be fine being able to ambush some of the surface ships, especially if they're moving at some speed. Because the Lupo over here is doing 9 knots, she's making 139. The Garibaldi aircraft carrier is doing 169. The Vtorio Venetto 159. The Sparviero doesn't have a sonar profile? I think that's weird. You're supposed to have that. Yeah, 139. So, whatever these things are doing to detect, especially as they increase speed, you will only be able to use the Toti to ambush them. If you want to use a slightly more capable platform with the same torpedoes, you got this one. This is the Sauro. The Sauro is much like her sister, slash older sister, a diesel-electric boat. It is capable of throwing 12 torpedoes, so your firepower has increased by 2. And the torpedo types are exactly the same. It's the A184. Aside from that, of course, we got some better sonars. We got a Velox hull-mounted sonar with a passing range of 24. And we have, of course, an active radar array if you really want to use that. BPS 704. I think the Toti's going to have something a bit similar. Yep, same radar. Then again, radar not that useful. Finally, we have the Marconi. I'm going to have you detach from the formation, and we're going to submerge. Let's go ahead at 1/3. These things are, I believe, not diesel electrics. These are nuclear attack submarines. Because in 1962, the Italian Navy considered acquiring nuclear attack subs. They then got the Marconis, inspired by the skipjacks. The Marconi was designed with the same iconic teardrop-shaped hull, intended for the S5W reactor. The standout feature is the large Special Operations Bay located in place of the upper bow sonar array on the skipjack, capable of hosting a team of divers and their scooters. So that has to be somewhere here. The project was cancelled well into its design process due to the US refusing to share key technologies, i.e. a nuclear reactor. Oops. As such, I think this thing might not have actually seen action, but in this game, you can do whatever you want. And because of that, the Marconi in this game does have a nuclear reactor. You can see that her own noise is higher than that of a diesel by a substantial margin. If I go all stop, maybe I could push it down to 137, but it'll not get much better than that. The torpedoes, though, are no change, really. They'll carry the A184. That makes this submarine arguably worse than her friends. And I'm saying that because, yes, she carries a lot of them, but her capabilities of maintaining concealment are arguably worse. This thing can do 132 noise, this thing can do 136, the Toti can do 130 if it's completely stationary. So, even when stationary, the Marconi is more easily detectable, which makes it potentially a bit more of a fragile platform to use. And with a more modern submarine like this, you would expect some more modern torpedoes as well. Now that's pretty much it for the Italian Navy. There is one ship that I haven't covered because it was just blatantly overpowered. And on top of that, it didn't seem to work that well for me. It is the Giuseppe Garibaldi class missile cruiser, which had a supposed length of 187 meters, but it had the MM Alpha. That's an 863 mile range anti-ship missile. No thank you. That's crazy overpowered. That even outshoots Soviet warships by hundreds of miles. And it has a maximum velocity of 5,000 knots. Well, 5530 if you want to be exact. Way too much. They also carry the RIM-2F, the Oto 135 projectile, and the Oto 76 projectile weapon. Anyway, that'll be it for the Italian Navy. Link down below in the description if you want to install these ships. Keep in mind that you do have to use anchor chain and sea lifter if you want to use them, otherwise it will not work. Thank you for watching, hope you found it useful. Let me know what your thoughts are on the Italians, and I'll see you soon for more videos.